In the closed corridors of Windsor Castle, where every word can cost a life and every secret a crown, a chilling story emerges. You thought the royal drama ended with the Oprah interview, Harry and Meghan's abdication, and the endless scandals of the British tabloids. It turns out the most gruesome and shameful was only just beginning. Buried in luxury and tradition, members of the royal family are hiding something that could shatter the faith of millions. And at the heart of this story are not riches, palaces, or power. At the center are the children, their blood, their lineage, and a single letter that became a slap in the face not only to Harry and Meghan, but to the entire monarchy. The story begins with Prince Harry and Meghan Markle finding themselves under pressure, overshadowed not only by the sorrow of King Charles II's passing, but also by the shadow of suspicion and betrayal. On a dark, rainy day at Windsor Castle, Princess Anne, usually the epitome of composure, stands with tearful eyes before Prince Harry and Meghan. In Clarence House, from which all staff had been removed, a heavy silence hung. The focus is on a sealed envelope full of sinister meaning. King Charles II, in his final hours, demanded a private DNA test for Archie and Lilibet, children whom the whole world unhesitatingly considered his grandchildren. The dying king's last will felt more like a stab in the back than a farewell. A single envelope and a whispered secret could change not only the fate of a family, but the soul of an entire nation. To fully grasp the depth of the situation, one must return to the origins that preceded the ill-fated letter, the emotional turmoil, the media scrutiny, and the deepening family rift. It was not a spontaneous gesture from a dying man, but the culmination of years of suspicion, entrenched traditions, and hidden conflicts. Despite modern trappings, the monarchy still rests on blood ties, both literal and symbolic. The royal lineage is not merely a family tree, but the foundation of power, succession, and national identity. King Charles II was acutely aware of this. As his health deteriorated and his demise approached, the significance of legacy increased. His life had been marred by scandals, from the tragic death of Princess Diana to his affair with Camilla Parker Bowles. Under intense public scrutiny and personal hardships, he ascended the throne at an older age than any of his predecessors, understanding that his reign would be short and focused on establishing his legacy. Therefore, when he reportedly turned to Princess Anne, his most trusted sister, with a final troubling request, it was driven not by malice but by desperation. "I must know," he allegedly said, "for the sake of the crown, for the purity of the bloodline." These were the words not of a father, but of a monarch, raised from birth to believe his blood was sacred. For Prince Harry, who for years had tried to shield his children from the institution he had left, these words were particularly painful. Archie and Lilibet are not heirs or titles, but his own innocent children, far removed from royal intrigues. Meghan Markle, who had already been subjected to relentless public criticism, racist insinuations, and media attacks because of her position in the royal family, now faced the most personal accusation of dishonesty regarding the paternity of her children. Such a statement could break any mother. In an atmosphere of universal tension, a faint glimmer of hope for reconciliation appeared. Charles II, to the surprise of many, sent his sons a personal invitation to visit Windsor Castle. It was a quiet, private return to the United Kingdom. This visit was starkly different from previous trips. This time the goal was simple: to talk and see each other. Arriving under heavy security, they avoided the bustling Heathrow airport, preferring to land discreetly at a military airbase. The children were not yet aware of the importance of this visit. For them, it was just a trip to see Grandfather King. Meanwhile, an unusual bustle reigned at Windsor. Staff were asked to vacate certain wings of the castle, and William and Catherine had already arrived with their children. A family divided for years reunited, united by a common expectation. Each member of the family was granted a private audience in his study. With William, he had quiet conversations about time, duty, and the succession of the crown. And he asked Catherine about the children. Then it was Harry's turn. According to eyewitnesses, a faint smile lit up Charles's face when his younger son appeared. The content of their conversation remained a secret, but insiders claim the discussion was not easy. As the conversation drew to a close and Charles felt weary, he leaned back in his chair and quietly uttered a question that would long echo in Harry's mind. "May I see them, Archie and Lilibet?" Harry nodded affirmatively. Of course. As he was about to leave, He heard his father's almost inaudible voice. "There is something I would like to ask you to settle. I hope you understand." That evening, the family gathered for dinner. No cameras, no protocol formalities, just family, as much as that was possible for the Windsors. It was the calm before the storm. Late at night, sheltering on the balcony, Harry and Meghan remained in painful silence. Finally, Meghan broke the prolonged silence. "You felt it too, didn't you?" Harry merely nodded affirmatively, confirming her words. "He's hiding something from us," she said with a worried voice. "Or perhaps preparing for something they prefer not to tell us." And they were both right in their suspicions. Already at dawn, the fragile peace that reigned in their lives was about to collapse. In any monarchy, there are two levels of power, the public and the invisible, but much more influential, wielded behind closed doors. In the final weeks of King Charles II's reign, it was this hidden power that subtly churned in the shadowy corridors of Clarence House. One morning, before most of the staff had arrived, King Charles summoned his sister, Princess Anne, his most trusted supporter. She entered her brother's private study shortly after 6 a.m. without much fanfare. King Charles looked exhausted. His face was paler and more gaunt than it had been just weeks ago, but his gaze remained sharp and focused. "I need to talk to you," he said. He began the conversation reservedly. "I need to know the truth." A pause followed. He broached the subject of Harry's children. His gaze became more intense, but she did not interrupt. "I am convinced that Harry and Meghan love their children. The question is not about love," he emphasized. "It's about lineage, about the future of the crown. I have spent my entire life watching this family build its history on secrets and omissions. I no longer desire that," he stated calmly but firmly. She carefully studied his face. What if the results do more harm than good? Charles's hands trembled slightly. He clasped them, trying to calm himself. "So be it." He reached across the desk for a cream-colored envelope with the royal crest imprinted in wax. "It can only be opened in case of extreme necessity, and only by you." "Not yet," he specified. "Do you realize what this could entail for Harry, Meghan, their children?" "I do," he replied quietly. "And you're still willing to take this step?" Charles met her gaze, softening. "I am not trying to hurt them. I am trying to protect the monarchy." After some hesitation, she reached out, took the envelope in front of her, and said, "I will take care of it. But no one must know, not even William. At least not yet." Charles nodded silently, expressing his agreement. Over the next 48 hours, everything was carried out with remarkable precision. She enlisted the support of 2 trusted royal physicians, bound by an oath of silence, consulted with a personal lawyer, hired an experienced forensic genealogist, ensuring strict confidentiality. It was a carefully planned royal operation, quiet, strategic, and absolutely secret. Only a select few knew what was happening, and even fewer suspected the consequences. For centuries, the British monarchy has surrounded itself with an aura of unshakable succession. Its lineage is rooted in more than 1,000 years of history. Royal blood is often associated with magnificence, power, and privilege. However, within the walls of the palace, it has a much deeper and more fundamental meaning. It is the currency of legitimacy, something that cannot be faked, bought, or obtained through marriage. When King Charles II shared with the princess his thoughts on the need to verify Archie and Lilibet's lineage, it was not merely an expression of personal curiosity, but an epochal event that disrupted the foundations that had been formed over centuries. This situation exposed the monarchy's deeply rooted, often hidden obsession with the purity of blood, and revealed that such a private investigation was by no means out of the ordinary. In the modern world, despite the transformations that have taken place, lineage still plays a significant role. According to reports, in the highest circles of power, the latest DNA technologies are actively used to establish paternity in delicate situations involving succession or complex family circumstances. However, the case in question was an exception to the rule. It was not an ordinary background check, but a check on the monarch's own grandchildren. The marriage of Meghan Markle and Prince Harry was enthusiastically received by the public, marking an unprecedented case in history when a divorced American actress of African descent entered the House of Windsor. Nevertheless, behind the scenes of the celebration, serious passions were flaring. Conservatively minded courtiers, who revered traditions, felt clear discomfort. With the birth of Archie, the joyous event was overshadowed by suspicion. Questions arose. Why was Meghan not photographed upon discharge from the hospital? Why were there no official photographs of the newborn? Why was the registration of the birth certificate delayed? For the general public, these details seemed like minor oddities, but for the palace, they became a warning sign. With the birth of Lilibet in California, away from the British type of royal oversight, these doubts flared up again. For Harry and Meghan, the news was a real blow, a painful betrayal of family trust. A father, on the eve of his death, doubting his son. For Meghan, it was an even heavier ordeal. It was not only about the paternity of her children, but also about a blow to her femininity, honesty, and maternal identity. The luxury of royal life had long left the everyday reality of Meghan and Harry, who had settled in the sun-drenched hills of Montecito, California. Their world contrasted sharply with the splendor of British palaces. Their spacious estate was protected by high-tech gates and tall hedges, hiding them from prying eyes. However, even in this carefully constructed oasis of privacy, true freedom remains an unattainable dream for them. Almost every day, new scandalous headlines appear. Every week there are new leaks from mysterious insiders from the UK, and there is always the constant fear that they are being watched closely. On one unremarkable day in Montecito, where the usually shining Californian sun gave way to leaden clouds, Harry and Meghan's life cracked for the first time. An unremarkable car with diplomatic plates arrived at the estate. It delivered a sealed envelope with the markings "Private," "Urgent," and "For your eyes only." He offered no explanation, merely uttering the formal phrase, "On behalf of the Crown." Harry retired to his study to open the envelope. Inside was a folded sheet of thick ivory paper with a concise message written in Anne's voice. However, another aspect gave the message its true weight. The text was clear and yet devastating. King Charles, on the eve of his declining health, officially requested a DNA test, not as a demand or compulsion, but as an expression of hope regarding Archie and Lilibet. Harry slowly delved into the lines of the letter. Each word settled in his mind. After rereading the message twice, he handed it to Meghan. Silence, like a thick canopy, covered the room. "He actually did it?" she whispered, as if addressing the void. Harry only nodded almost imperceptibly in response. "He didn't believe us," Meghan said, absorbed in silence. Harry gently corrected her. "He didn't believe me." This moment became a painful transition from initial shock to grief, from confusion to realization of betrayal. Harry added that he had always intended to keep this secret to the end of his days, but now he had passed this secret on to us. On the same day, an official response was prepared, couched in tactful but firm terms. The letter was sent not directly to the royal palace, but through legal channels. It confirmed receipt of the letter and the king's request, which was rejected based on the need to protect the privacy of their children. There will be no DNA tests now or in the future. Signed by both spouses, the decision felt not like a triumph, but rather like a slammed door that might never open again. Meghan, consumed by internal contradictions, said with a quiet but unwavering confidence, "I am not going to prove to anyone that I am the mother of my children." Harry, listening intently to her every word, supported her. "And you shouldn't." There was steel in her voice as she continued, "These are my children. I gave birth to them, and I don't have to defend it." Late at night, Meghan, immersed in deep thought, settled in the nursery where she saw Lilibet sleeping peacefully. Meghan gently touched the child's forehead, removing a stray lock of hair. "I won't let them take anything from you," she whispered. "Not your peace, not your story, not your name." Returning to the bedroom, Meghan saw Harry sitting quietly on the edge of the bed. His gaze was directed into the void. "What are we going to do?" he asked. Meghan took his hand. "We will tell the truth, our truth, over and over again, until they stop trying to distort it." Her emotions. Meghan's emotional breakdown became not just a display of weakness, but a turning point, a point of no return. In the following days, Meghan became quieter, but her resolve strengthened. There were fewer tears, but her voice sounded more confident. She began preparing for the next interview, the next documentary, the next chapter of her life, ready to challenge the system that allowed her children's legitimacy to be questioned. Meanwhile, in London, within the walls of Clarence House, Princess Anne made the decision to convene an emergency family council. Attendance was strictly mandatory. Prince William and Kate Middleton were among the first to arrive. The tension was clearly visible on William's face. Following them, the Duke of Edinburgh and his wife Sophie appeared. The princess entered the room and, without losing a second, firmly closed the door behind her. "The king's request has been denied," she stated bluntly. A heavy silence fell over the room. William leaned forward from his seat by the window. "They refused?" he confirmed, nodding his head. The official refusal was formalized in writing and transmitted through legal channels. William exhaled loudly. "Do they really think we intended to expose them to the public?" he asked bitterly. "No," the princess replied in an even tone. "They believe we are trying to erase them from memory." The princess hastened to intervene. "You are missing the main point. The public is not very interested in the order of succession. They are much more concerned that the king passed away without receiving an answer to an important question, and that his own son refused to provide assistance. This was the crux of the crisis. Not only the existence of the test or the letter of refusal, but also the fact that a question once raised publicly can no longer be completely suppressed. It begins to live its own life, grows with speculation and distortions, moving far away from the original facts. The royal family understood this perfectly. Despite her inherent composure, the princess looked particularly tired that morning, exhausted by the burden of responsibility. She took another envelope from her purse. "The king left this for Harry," she said. William squinted. "Another letter?" The princess nodded affirmatively. "It was written a few weeks before his death, and the request for refusal." "Have you read it?" Catherine asked. "No," the princess replied. "It is sealed, and intended for Harry only." William looked closely at the envelope, then turned his gaze to the princess. "Then why do you still have it?" There were icy notes in the princess's voice. "Because Harry may never decide to open it, and I need to know if this door is closed forever." Soon the meeting ended, bringing neither a clear plan of action nor concrete solutions. The king's request was final and irreversible. The only option left was silence, minimizing damage, and waiting. William and Catherine, remaining silent, left the room. The princess remained alone in the drawing room, still clutching the ill-fated letter in her hand. The family gathering brought no healing. Instead, it only exposed all the contradictions as the monarchy prepared for the final chapter of Charles's reign. One thing was clear: it was no longer about restoring relationships,